David, we're very much here in the shadow or in the epicenter of the world economic crisis. But we know that its effects are harsh here, but that they're even worse in the poorest communities in the world. There's a Christian Science Monitor article that says we've got trouble, 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 echoing the Music Man, but it's a very serious message. How do you see that we can keep the focus on the immediate needs, but not forget the potential and the progress that we've made in fighting long-term poverty? And what can religious communities do to help that?
Well, just I want to start with the scale of the damage that's being done to poor people. In our country, food banks are reporting that requests for emergency food are up 1/3 over the last 12 months. You know, people who are unemployed are just, that's a huge, food stamps, Catholic Charities, it's all tiny. When you lose your job, you're in trouble. And then globally, the World Bank estimates that the number of people in extreme poverty dropped from 1.9 billion in 1980 to 1.4 billion a couple years ago. And just over the last 2 or 3 years, that's gone to 1.55 billion. I'm sorry to be wonky. I'm an ordained economist. No. but just if you think about it, over decades, I think God has been making progress against poverty. This is something holy that's been happening in our time. And because of turmoil in the global economy, about 150 million people have been driven into extreme poverty. For most of these people, this is hunger. Their babies are dying. So the crisis is very real. It's a terrible setback in what I think God wants to be happening in our time. And on the, I think the religious community is doing a pretty good job in the middle of this crisis. We need to deal with the immediate need, but also to shape the kind of country, the kind of world we're going to be when we come out of this crisis. And so, for example, Bread for the World, we're a Christian advocacy movement. We're putting a lot of emphasis on reforming U.S. foreign assistance so that in a time like this, we ought to make sure that we're using those dollars as well as we can, get more of the foreign assistance dollars to really help poor people. We're working on U.S. agriculture and trade policy because that's a way to use the momentum of the moment to reduce poverty over the long term. I think we're going to be working on tax policies that affect poor people. So I think we're doing a fairly decent job in the middle of this crisis. Catholic Charities is meeting thousands and thousands, millions probably, of people who are coming in off the streets desperately poor. And Catholic Relief Services are doing the same globally. But I think at the same time that some of the religious community is very active in trying to deal with the problem in a way that will make us a better country and a better world. Cardinal, if I can, but just from a religious perspective, I think that this economic crisis can be seen as a wake-up call. Because as a country, we really haven't done a very good job of setting up systems to help poor people, either in our own neighborhoods or around the world. And the Bible's really clear that if you want prosperity and long-term security for your nation, do right by the poor. It's controversial teaching, but it's there, I think, Cardinal. And so I think the religious teaching in this crisis is this is a time to get serious, much more serious than our nation has ever been, about solidarity with people in need.